believe in the ripple effect.
What's up? Another episode of the Ripple Effect Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ricardo Brands, also known as Ricky Francis, and a great episode for you today. Today we have returning guest, somebody who's been on the Ripple Effect Podcast a bunch, and my other show, The Union of the Unwanted, Jason Bermas. He's a documentary filmmaker, researcher, OG in the community, and a part of one of the most important documentaries, I think, in history, Loose Change, which red-pilled a huge generation of people, including myself, into better understanding how the world really works. And today we talk about everything from technology, transhumanism, COVID, 5G, and much more. And if you want to support the show, this is a value for value show. You can go to the rippleeffectpodcast.com or rickyvranis.com. Both URLs will bring you to the same website, and you can click on support. And what you will find there is my Patreon page if you want to support me on Patreon. And once a month, I do a Patreon podcast with my Patreon supporters. So that's always fun. I have a PayPal account if you want to donate that way. I have a crypto wallet, and I have a merch store. And you'll find all this stuff, like I said, at the rippleeffectpodcast.com. If you're watching this on Odyssey, all the links are in the show description. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, any of the audio platforms, all the links are in the show description. There's a couple of video platforms that give you limited space in the show description to add stuff. But like I said, rippleeffectpodcast.com, you can find all that stuff. And of course, if you can't financially support the show, like I always say, don't worry about it. Rate, review, thumbs up, share the show, and that goes a long way. And it's a huge help fighting against the algorithms that are for sure suppressing shows like mine. And since my show got deleted off YouTube, it's much, much harder to run into it and find it anywhere. If you go on Google and you search for Ripple Effect Podcast, it usually doesn't come up on the first page. You can put in an exact episode with the name of the guest and everything, and it's hard to find. So I think there's something about being deleted off YouTube that blacklists your content and makes it much harder for people to find or discover your content. So keep that in mind. So sharing, reviewing, if you guys are on any social media platforms, upload the show if you want. You can download the video, I think, on my Odyssey channel. I think Odyssey gives you the capabilities to download any video that's on their platform. So feel free to upload the video, upload the audio on any site you may have or any social media platform, and just help spread these conversations. And I believe that's it. Enjoy this conversation, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace. Nice shirt, man. Corn. Throwback.
Dude, I got holes in it. The thing is, they're coming to the tax slayer center. It's like 15 minutes away, not even, like right over the bridge. But it's in the Illinois side, so they want a test or a pass, and I won't do it. I'm thinking I'm going to go to Daytona. There's this thing called Rockville for 4 days, and it's stacked. I think Korn plays on the third day they headline. I seen them a bunch of times back in the day. It used to be my favorite. So, it'd be nice.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember the first time I heard Blind, that song, it just blew me away. It was like, I mean, there's certain, I think we're a little different in age, but I think we grew up in the same era roughly with music. I was a big nu metal fan, even though it got a lot of shit for, nu metal became cool really fast and became uncool really fast.
I saw fucking Limp Bizkit in Des Moines. What was it, like 3 months ago, right after Lollapalooza, because that was in Chicago. So I looked it up because that's pretty close to me, and I'm like, no shit, they're playing this venue. It was great. It was fucking awesome. And then at the end of the set of the show, they played Don't You Forget About Me, the end of the Breakfast Club. They didn't actually play it. They actually put it on as they were throwing shit out. Dude, it's a great show. Great show.
Well, some of their remakes actually were pretty good. What was it? Behind Blue Eyes or whatever the hell it was called.
Yeah, they did that. He did it live. I've got it on video. I
Yeah,
mean, I had a blast. You know who opened up? It was fucking Mike Valley, the skateboarder from like the CKY videos and the Tony Hawk games that used to beat the shit out of everybody.
Yeah.
So he had this fucking metal band, right? And I'm like, holy shit, Mike Valley's got a band. And like, all I can remember is I used to watch him when I like late night, stoned, drunk, showing people the CKY videos, beating the fuck out of these people with Bam Margera filming it. And he walked by me. So like after their set, he came by me. So I was like, hey, Mike, great set. Dude's this fucking big. He's like 4 inches shorter than me. And I'm like, this fucking guy who's like beating up 3 dudes at a time. I was just like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like I said, blast, man. That's you got to live your life, right? You gotta be able to have those moments. That's how I feel about it, especially in these dark times.
yeah. And well, Jonathan Davis, I've seen a couple of interviews with him where he seems pretty open-minded, and
Now he is.
yeah,
It's hilarious because way back in the day, they did this song. Not way back. It's way back in the day now, but it's like post-war on terror starting. And they do this fucking song called Politics. And he's like, I don't give a shit about politics. I don't give a fuck about politics. Like, basically, I don't want to know. And then a few years later, I think he gets clued in on like, the New World Order. And you see him on like, he's on a couple specials talking about the quote unquote Illuminati. And, Brian left a long time. I think he was gone for like 5 or 6 years, Welsh. And he went to Jesus. And then I guess he came back to the band. And from what I'm hearing, the entire band is now Christian. So, food for thought.
which is weird because it's similar to you. I'm not. I'd consider myself, I guess, spiritual, even though that sounds really corny. But I don't consider. I had the typical like raise as from a religious family, and they're Catholic. So are they really religious? I mean, they just go to church and they kind of loosely do what Catholics should be doing and don't follow it very literal. And then you rebelled against that because I was always somebody who kind of went against the grain and asked questions. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? These guys aren't letting me ask questions. I'm like, I'm getting in trouble for asking questions, and they're okay with not having answers or having half-assed answers. And it's really quickly I picked up on the fact, like, okay, this cult-like thinking where just like you're defending this this philosophy or this worldview regardless if it makes sense or not. And then I was drawn into like the Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins, and to me, like, oh wow, they're making much more sense to me. And then it didn't take long before I realized I left one team to join another. I'm like, these guys are just as extreme as those guys. And then when I got into alternative media, one thing that I found that was really interesting, especially with Christopher Hitchens, was like, he wrote the book, The Trials of Henry Kissinger, and the documentary was actually very good too, based on the book. And so he seems like he understands foreign policy, but his hatred for religion during when they were trying to justify going into the Iraq war, going into Iraq and selling us the war, he was all for it because of his hatred for religious people. And he kind of fell for the trap of, oh, it's all about these extreme religious crazy people, and that's why we have all these terrorist attacks and all this stuff. It's like, wait, you wrote the book The Trials from Henry Kissinger, showing how much of our foreign policy is a facade and it's always for other interests, and yet your hatred for organized religion is creating this flaw in your philosophy and your thinking, and you can't see that. And then I'm like, fuck both of them. But now I've kind of come around as I become a little older and as an adult, because I can see how, like, I've always been super fascinated with philosophy, because one thing I like about philosophy, it's like you're constantly asking questions, and rarely are you actually coming to any like concrete conclusions, right? It's like it's the same arguments. And it's just, you're entertaining different perspectives, and this philosopher thinks this about reality, and that philosopher thinks that about morals and judgment and all this stuff. And I like that because I think it's good. It's a good brain exercise, right? Just constantly asking questions. But we're getting to a point now where like people are so caught up in everyday lives that we don't ask those questions anymore. People don't look at things from an outside view. They don't ask why they're doing things. Am I just a mouse on a wheel running in place, being told what to do? And religion, at least religious people, that I know, seem to, like, if they get something out of going to church or believing in something, is that it does give them a reason to ask those bigger questions. Like, okay, what, like, you go to work all week, and then Sunday comes around, and regardless what you believe about your opinions on organized religion, you go to church, and then that priest talks about, like, the afterlife. He talks about being good to your neighbor. And it's like, I think some people, like maybe you and I, maybe we don't need that reminder of those things, but some people are so caught up in their, trying to get ahead and trying to get promoted and taking care of their everyday priorities. It takes maybe a church on Sunday to make them pump the brakes and kind of reflect a little bit. Like, what is this really all about? So I think that, as I get older, I find more benefits from it instead of just looking at all the negatives. But you also see during this whole COVID thing, and I've said this over and over again, so sorry for the listeners who constantly hear me say this, but I'm not the only one saying it. It does seem like a spiritual battle, and something spiritual, like it almost seems like it's a fight for humanity. And
it is.
It
is a fight for humanity. Listen, let's make no mistake about it. No matter what you believe, this is literally the fight for the soul of humanity across all religions. And that's the thing. First of all, let's go back to Hitchens and what you said. He couldn't see that because of his blind hatred. And it is that blind spot, right? And I believe a lot of these people have had a lot of these blind spots for a long time. Look, Jimmy Dore, I think he does great work. All right. Now, obviously, he had a lot of blind spots when it came to COVID 1984, Fauci, and then the rollout of vaccines. And now I want to point this out. One of his major blind spots continues to be Medicare for all. And why is that? It's not because I don't want everybody to have health care and free health care and good health care in this system. I think that's not only doable, he's right. That should occur. But when you have that system, you're just going to get an over-exaggerated version of what's going on right now, where you can't get the cheap life-saving medications that you need, right? And instead, you'll be gouged with big pharma, and you'll have to jump through hoops for that quote-unquote Medicare for all. So listen, we got to keep overcoming these blind spots. And again, when we get to religions and the way they've been paired off against each other, Ricky, that's another blind spot. Right? Like I continue every time I watch, Fox News, where you get maybe like 20% truth at this point, which is a huge amount compared to what you see in the rest of the media. But 20%, there's still this hammering home of the terrorists are going to come and get us. All right. There's still this hammering home of, basically because of immigration, we're all going to, lose our system. And there's some truth to the, non-establishment of borders, but at the same time, if we don't have free and fair elections, and no one's talking about getting rid of the digital voting, right? That's not a topic on Fox. I just want to point that out. Ever should be the topic on Fox every single day as the midterms come up, if they actually cared about this two-party system, which is a facade, right? But it's not. And so if the same rules, laws, whatever mandates are in place for this midterm election, you can just point to the demographics and say, well, that's what happened, right? Just like they tried to point to the demographics on Joe Biden and saying, well, this is what happened. Really? How many Build Back Better hats have we seen? Despite the huge hatred for Trump, right? How many times did you hear spontaneously crowds of tens of thousands of people start saying, fuck Donald Trump? It never happened, right? And we've been gaslit into a reality where a senile, dementia-ridden old man that's calling somebody a stupid son of a bitch and has never been fact-checked and shits his pants is supposed to be the president of the United States, right? So, to circle back to Jen Psaki style to this battle for humanity, this is the battle for humanity. This is the battle against the post-truth world as they bring in their fourth industrial revolution. They automate things, and they literally try to go after your human soul via their technologies. I mean, right now, again, Elon Musk isn't your friend. Neuralink is about to start doing their human trials to get your kids ready. And here's the thing, Ricky, we have to focus on the kids. 2 days ago now, not even 2 days ago, New York struck down all the mask mandates. Do you know about this? Have you seen this yet?
They struck down all the mask mandates?
Oh, Ricky, it's not in the news. And let me tell you why.
Oh, wait, somebody actually hit me up actually, and they send it to me. That's the cool thing about being content creators like yourself and me. We get shit sent to us all the time. Yeah, somebody did. I didn't get to review it yet because somebody's like, do you think it's coming to Massachusetts? Because I live in Massachusetts, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to look into it. I didn't even know anything about it. So yeah, fill us in, please.
So it was late on, it had to be, what's today? Monday night. Okay. Like Monday afternoon, Monday night. And basically the judge, state Supreme Court, Long Island judge. Let me read to you what the suit said, because it's very, very important. All right. Basically, they said none of these things have ever been adjudicated. None of these things are laws at all. And they never had the right to mandate any type of mask on a child or otherwise. Let me just read this. Okay. It is not a permissibly enacted rule, null and void as a matter of law, improperly enacted, constitutionally impermissible, violative of constitutional rights, and unenforceable. Okay. Now, this was on every single count. Okay. Every one. The judge agreed. Ordered and adjudged, ordered and adjudged, all the way down. There is no mask mandate in New York. The Supreme Court has spoken. In fact, let me read this last paragraph for you so people can understand how laws are made, okay? And how this is nowhere in the national media. By the way, I watched Fox yesterday. None of them were reading this document. None of them were talking about this. As stated previously, there can be no doubt that every person in this state wishes, wants, and prays that this era of COVID ends soon, and they will surely do their part to see that it is accomplished. However, enacting any laws to this end is entrusted solely to the state legislator. While the intentions of the Commissioner Bassett and Governor Hochul appear to be well-aimed, bullshit, squarely at doing what they believe is right to protect the citizens of New York, they must take their case to the state legislator. Should the legislator, representative of and voted into office by the citizens of New York, after publicly informed debate, decide to enact laws requiring face coverings in schools and other public places, then the commissioner would likely be well grounded in properly promulgated and enacted rules to supplement such laws. So basically he said, there are no laws, there are no mandates. So what happens? Immediately, the school systems throughout New York at 10 p.m. send a letter to all the parents saying, fuck you, we're going to torture your kids anyway. They're wearing masks. We don't care, because they're going to appeal it. So now, because you say you're going to appeal a Supreme Court decision that you took almost 2 years to make, a year and a half after these suits, okay, they're still torturing kids. There's no law. There's no mandate. There's no rule. It has been struck down. And Kelly Hochul, an unelected minion of the predator class, put in there after they had Andrew Capo, serial killer Cuomo, that they got rid of in a non-sex scandal, folks. This is a reality right now. So they're telling you the New York State school system and their representatives, and Kelly Hochul and her representatives, supersede the state Supreme Court and legislators after they ruled against all of it. It angers me.
Yeah, I have kids in the public. We took them out of public schools for a while, and my wife was just, I mean, it is draining. I mean, doing homeschooling, especially with like both of our super busy schedules, it's hard to find the time and energy. And I actually enjoy doing it. I just don't have the, you know, the capability to take it all on myself. And my wife was just kind of drained. And there is something about like going to a place to learn, or it's almost like people who work from home and then people who go to the office. Like some people believe like when I go to the office, like I'm tuned in because I know I'm there to do my stuff. And if I'm home, I'll just procrastinate all day. And I get that. And with kids, I think it's a little similar too, where they know they don't have to sit there. They can just procrastinate and be like, okay, well, I'll do this later if you let me have a snack or whatever, you know. So but we put the kids back in school. In Massachusetts, I had a similar issue where every town was deciding for themselves what they were doing with mask mandates for schools. And I was going to school committee meetings, and arguing the fact that I knew if they decided to start this the year with the masks were going to stay on, and they kept saying, well, we're just going to start the year until like the numbers get better. And it's like, well, what's your criteria? Like, what numbers are you looking for before we can take them off? And of course you didn't get any answer, because they didn't have any answer. They were just going to try to continue to have them on. But regardless, I got a petition going and fought, and then the state just decided for us. And which, you know, made me feel defeated, because I'm like, I was really hoping I could make enough noise where you know, put some pressure on the school committee and get them to decide to make it optional. And yeah, and it just, you know, the states decide for us, though. Everybody in Massachusetts, which is, it fucking pisses me off, because in my town of Ludlow, Massachusetts, right outside of Springfield, Massachusetts, you don't have to wear a mask anywhere, you know. So the only people who have to wear a mask in my town are the people who are the least threatened by the virus. So only kids who go to school have to wear masks, and the rest of the adults don't have to. And it breaks my heart. But there is, let me just share with you guys, for people watching, I've talked about it before, but I'll share with you. If you're in a shitty situation like myself and you're in a state, get these masks. I love the slogan, masks for people who like oxygen and hate tyranny. It's called the minimal compliant masks. And you can get them. They're almost completely breathable, and they look identical to a real mask. My kids wear these to school, and it's kind of, you know, it's the best option. I also tell my kids, I'm like, anytime you want to take off your mask or put it down or whatever, I'm like, do it. You know, you're not going to get in trouble, because all they're going to do is contact me, and I don't give a fuck. So you know, I let them know. I'm like, don't ever worry about getting in trouble for not wearing your mask. Or luckily they have pretty good teachers that aren't really super strict about it. But I mean, the thing is, there's so many kids out there that are dropping their mask, sneezing in their mask. There's no fucking protocols for this stuff. So basically what you're doing is you're supposedly putting on these things to protect the kids and protect people's health. And yet, you know, there's no protocol. If a kid drops a mask in the bathroom, if a kid is wearing the same mask every single day, our teachers are told to look out for that, to make sure they replace it and put something clean on their face. There's none of that. So it's, you know, like we've been saying since the beginning of this, it's about compliance, not science. All of this is ridiculous. The other thing about New York, the last time you were on, Justin McCarthy, the attorney that was with us, he is also fighting Massachusetts over same type of argument. He's saying if we're out of a state of emergency, no educational department whatsoever has any authority to decide to put masks, make a health decision for schools. So he's making the argument that they're completely overreaching their authority, and they shouldn't have that authority. So, I mean, the thing is, one thing we've learned is the rules can easily be bent for their benefit. Rules don't really mean shit. They just, I mean, you see it with YouTube, right? Oh, these are our guidelines. And it's like, if you try to argue like, hey, you're misrepresenting your guidelines or misrepresenting my content, it doesn't matter. If they don't like you, they don't like you, and you just get fucked anyways, So it's, I mean, thank God. I think places like Rockfin and all these alternative platforms, thank God they exist, because think about the fact that people wouldn't be able to find, just any alternative perspectives, at least video form. Audio form, yeah, but video form you can't. And these video platforms, it's much easier to scroll and find new content because you sign up, there's a bunch of suggestions or all this stuff. When you're using a podcast app, if it's iTunes or if you're using whatever it may be, you're going to basically search for the podcast you're looking for, subscribe to it, and chances are the stuff that you're being suggested it really isn't anything that's going against the grain. If they're, the algorithms are not working in your favor. I don't know if you heard the recent Rogan podcast with Dr. Robert Epstein, but he is fucking phenomenal. This dude is, I mean, I've been following him for a while on Twitter and kind of following his work, but it's scary how influential Google and YouTube is and the algorithms, and it's like legitimately social engineering. And
of course, Ricky, this is the psychological warfare, Trojan horse civilian system that they wrote down and they said they would do pre 9/11. This is out in the open, folks. So for people that do not understand this, I keep going back to this document because it's the one that keeps on giving. All right. Like, the bottom line is that cyber warfare and CNN syndrome specifically are talked about in this. Now, when you talk about Google and YouTube, they don't have to turn a profit, and they don't. Think about that. They're not turning a profit. They literally, all right, so let's start with NASA, right? Why am I saying Google and NASA? Because they're basically the same entity, because it's just a derivation of the national security state. That's Eric Schmidt. That's 2005. They literally partnered with NASA that only spends about 20% of their time, budget, and effort on quote unquote space exploration. And by 2019 together, they had achieved quantum supremacy. All right. I want to repeat that. Quantum supremacy. So quantum computing, AI, what we know, they partnered with one another. Remember, YouTube, just a shell corporation for Google, just a shell corporation for Alphabet. Again, these Trojan horse civilian systems that you will see in here. Hold on, let's do that. So that's what they refer to them as. Right there, Trojan horse civilian systems. Notice that it's inexpensive for information, internet, and psychological warfare. Psychological warfare in this document 8 times. Again, pre 9/11. Now, what is CNN syndrome? Well, they want to exploit it. And CNN syndrome was what was described after the Gulf War was televised, and they realized how much they could manipulate the masses. There are entire books on it. So they take that, and remember, this is pre 9/11. This is published in July of 2001's Capture and Torture Americans in Living Color on Prime Time. Remember all those beheading videos? Remember watching 9/11 and just snuff film after snuff film of the explosion again and again and again? Terror attacks within the continental United States. It says binary bio behind me. Geez, what's a bioweapon? Oh, wait a minute. That's right. Critical infrastructure takedown. That's the next thing. We're all talking about cyber polygon. And look, serious cyber war, right in the same page. Collateral damage exploitation. YouTube, of course, is social engineering us. That is their purpose. They are there as an extension of the military industrial complex. Look at this, quantum supremacy. So when Bilderberg gets together in 2018, what's on the agenda in the post-truth world? Well, along with the post-truth world are the inequality challenge, a lot of equity out there, the future of work. Weird, pre-pandemic, they were already getting ready for everything that was discussed again in this document. This is why I kind of keep going back to it. When we say everything, we mean everything. Everything. When I say everything, we mean shopping, entertainment, travel, education, medicine, commerce, politics, and of course, socialization. There's your Facebook, there's your Twitter. It's all right here. Gets better. So we talked about how Google just teamed up with NASA, quantum supremacy, artificial intelligence on the agenda that year. Quantum computing on the agenda that year in the post-truth world. So, that's why we make these interconnections. That's why people need to stop thinking just because they call themselves a company and they're traded on the stock market and they have privatized employees that they're somehow a private business. Private capitalized businesses are taken down. They have competition. This has no competition and an endless supply of funds, just like Musk and Tesla and SpaceX and all that other bullshit. And there's a reason for that. Because again, when you think that Elon Musk is your buddy putting up Starlink, oh, I'm going to put up Starlink where that big explosion happened, right? We're going to get all those people internet. They're putting up DARPA's internet, blackjack. That's what that really is. When they're telling you you're going to the moon and Mars and all this other horse crap, okay, with his rockets, no, he's sending military cargo anywhere in the world on behalf of the US government in an hour with those rockets. And then he's putting up DARPA's internet. And then Neuralink is putting DARPA's brain chip technology in your head as they try to normalize it being used, okay, to treat traumatic brain injury because, it helps soldiers. Remember, the guy that made that document, Dennis Bushnell, told the Blue Tech Forum in 2011, 11 years ago almost now, that they'd already put brain chips in 10,000 people. And this overweight, unhappy woman with a mask on out in her garden has a brain chip, and it's helping with her depression. And I'm sorry for going that far, but that's why they want our kids, bro. Well, let me make it very clear. They are moving to a transhumanist future. That is why they are trying to lower the age of consent for sex, for instance, in California for 12. It's more than just, the pedo trans movement. This is the transhumanist movement. And if you could tell a child that they also at 9 or 12 have the right to take whatever vaccine they want and take that medical decision, you give them more and more promise. Meanwhile, they've been dehumanized. They can't emotionally relate to others. They've lost a little piece of that soul and they want to get it back. And they know that these devices, they provide all sorts of endorphins and fun. Now the device is in your head. And here's the tricky part about it, Ricky. Certain aspects, if those kids get brain chips at say 12 or 14 or 16, in ways they will be more intelligent than humans. They will have more accessibility to say maybe even learn a language like that or have it implanted. And who knows how far it goes. But at the same time, those neuro wires that are literally, there's 4 nanowires, just like fibers right in your brain, they can control endorphins. They can make you more docile. They can make you more receptive to certain ideas and feelings. And basically, they can make you a human drone, whether you want to believe it or not. So if they could convince a full generation of children, all right, that they already have autonomy over their bodies and they're not a man or a woman, and they could put chips in their brains, they can literally engineer the next level of quote unquote human evolution in this 4th industrial revolution.
Yeah, it's crazy because people like, I mean, you were on episode 8 of my podcast in 2013 or 2014. And I mean, obviously you've been researching and deep into this for a long, long time. And one of the things that gives me a little bit of hope is that people like yourself, the things you've been talking about for a long time now has become so obvious and people are now accepting it, where before you could only find people who even understood what eugenics was or what transhumanism was in like the fringes of the internet. And now you can have an open discussion with somebody at the line at a theater or at a concert or whatever, and people are open to the idea that maybe Bill Gates isn't a great guy, maybe Google is spying on you and controlling you, manipulating you, and so it's like that does give me a little bit of hope. But the power that they have and the fact that there's, I mean, the transhuman, you can see it with the metaverse and obviously Facebook, and then that's the thing with the transgender conversation and that whole thing is like, it's a touchy subject for many people because I don't think they're connecting the dots that it's like, okay, this isn't about like being sensitive to a kid who maybe is lost. I mean, we probably both grew up metalheads, and I mean, I hung out with a bunch of kids that, including myself, who dressed in black, every day and wore chain wallets and wore metal shirts that were a little bit disturbing to others. And, wearing Marilyn Manson shirts, getting me kicked out of school and that type of stuff. I'm all for being sensitive to people who are just kind of soul searching and trying to find a home or a community or a tribe. And, but to let kids make permanent decisions when you're letting kids decide at 12 that they want to be the opposite sex forever for the rest of their lives is just insanity. I mean, I grew up with girls who liked sports more than some of the guys I hung out with, and I grew up with guys that were more artistic than some of the girls I grew up with. So it's like, it's just to me, like, it doesn't mean you have to surgically remove or add a penis, just because of your hobbies and the things you're interested in. So it makes you think like, what's the push for all this? And you're seeing it, like, it's happening everywhere. There's a interesting interview with Megyn Kelly and Bill Maher, where she was it was specifically about her taking her kids out of the New York schools. And she talked about how all these weird things are going on in this very nice private school where they're asking like kids, like making them feel guilty about their skin color, making them question their gender, all these things that kids should not be even discussing or thinking about. And then when this started happening at her private school, and she starts talking to other people who are in other schools and other school systems, apparently she's like, there's nowhere to go. It was happening everywhere. It was happening in the public schools, it was happening in the private schools, and it was a real. And even Bill Maher was like, who it seems like in some cases, sometimes he's like, oh, he gets it, and other times like he doesn't get it at all. But in this specific topic, he gets it, and he understood that. He's like, this isn't right. And I don't even understand who are the people who think this is okay. I mean, there's parents out there, the same parents who would let their kids have hormone replacement because they think that they're the opposite sex. They're the same. I mean, using that same logic of just, instead of resolving whatever issue they're having, it'd be the equivalent of like saying my kid's alcoholic and let me just keep giving him alcohol because I just want to make him happy. I just want to give him what he needs.
Well, let's roll it back a little bit, because you're talking about hormones, right? But where does this really start? Like, even before we get into trans and medicating children as if that's okay, and not medicating them because they're physically hurt, right, Ricky? Like, it's not like, oh my goodness, my kid broke his leg, he's going to need to be on some kind of painkillers, probably need some steroid shots. No, it's my kid's a little too hyper. Let's talk about ADD and ADHD and start putting kids on serotonin reuptake inhibitors and normalizing that first. Notice that was normalized first. And then all of a sudden we get into the hormones, and you already have a populace that has been emasculated, right, through these estrogen mimickers that are leaching, through the BPA. I mean, we could do it live, Ricky, where we put in, you're half the man your father was. Now, that sounds crazy, but in this generation, that's true. And let's see, where are we?
Well, I've had Dr. Pam Popper on. She was in a documentary a long time ago called Making a Killing. And it's the only thing about this documentary, I recommended it forever to people because it was a really good documentary about the history of the DSM and how bullshit it is. Like, the term chemical imbalance is inherently not scientific, because what they do is they use the term to justify giving you a drug, but nobody ever gets tested for which chemical is imbalanced or how imbalanced it is. So you become a guinea pig of, try this. Oh, that doesn't work. Try this one. Try more of this one. Try. And most of the time, what they do is they suppress all emotions, which, some people might remember people testifying in the 90s, the Prozac, side effects of suicide. And I remember this years ago, seeing this video of this woman testifying, saying she had a gun at her family sleeping in their bed, and at the last second she just dropped it, and once she got off the pills she was fine. It's like, how can a side effect of an antidepressant be suicidal tendencies? Like, it's like so deranged, like it's so non-scientific, the DSM. And to me, like, yeah, kids are over ADHD. Kids are full of fucking energy. If you gave me 3 Red Bulls and you say, hey, Rick, sit down for 6 hours, I'm going to try to lecture you on some science or biology, I'd be like, go fuck yourself. I can't sit here. Like, I'm like, I'm just so uncomfortable. Like, that's how kids are. My son is nonstop from the second he wakes up to the second he goes to bed. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with him. It means he's healthy. He's full. Guess what do we call an adult who's full of energy? Healthy. What do we call an adult who has no energy? Unhealthy. So why the fuck do we have different descriptions for children? Like, kids are full of energy. It's unnatural to ask them to sit down and listen to some boring shit for 6 hours. The reason why I didn't get brainwashed in high school or any, my schooling throughout my life was because I never paid attention. It was boring to me, and it just, I just didn't care, and so I get it. I wanted to go play. I wanted to go see my friends. I wanted to go home and play my guitar. I wanted to go to the basketball court and shoot hoops. I wanted to do anything but be there. And I would look at kids who actually sat there and paid attention, and I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, are you just unhealthy? Like, because I have all this energy I want to burn, and you just want to see, like, it's insanity. And you put these, and a lot of parents, and I don't want to pick on parents because I think they're misinformed, but a lot of parents, it's probably a little bit of laziness, to give them a pill that makes them much easier to discipline your child and tolerate your child because they're not running around and they're not as needy. And so it's like a, we had a husky growing up, our family, and huskies are notorious for like they just need a lot of exercise, and he's constantly pulling. And it's the same thing. Like I couldn't ask that husky to do what, to not move and like have less energy. We just had to find things for it to do, like go for a walk, give it exercise. That's what you should be doing with kids. That's why I'm so.
Well, let me stop you there. You're absolutely right. But I mean, think about what you're talking with the dog analogy, right? People can sit there and watch a show with Caesar Milan and he's the dog whisperer and realize very quickly that the problem is not with the dog, or it's with the owner not doing things with the dog. And literally Caesar in a week to a month's time can change the behavior of just about any animal you've ever seen on the show, right? Why don't you think that relates to your child or other mammals in general with nurturing, exercise, effort, and work? And the other thing that's really terrible about this over medication is it also creates this victimology, this victim mentality that something is inherently wrong with me. And that's why I do this, or I act this way, or I don't do this, or I can't do this. And I think it's a mental illness within the parents. I think it's that social engineering that they've succumbed to because they watch these commercials and all these shows, and they're watching literally reality shows where they want to be some rich ex-housewife of Atlanta. They're all meted up and unhappy. Fuck these people. Why would you want that to be your life? Or they want to be the actor on the screen playing the action star. Do you want 3 failed marriages and an alcohol problem and a drug problem and the inability to go out in public? Is that what you want? Like, I look at all those things and I don't look at them as something I want to aspire to be, because I know what comes with them, right? And I realize that I have to hold myself accountable for my actions, and I'm not perfect. None of us are. It's a struggle. But again, that Bernaysian mental social engineering brainwashing of society has said, don't worry, we can make it better with a pill. We can make it better with an injection now. And that's, and soon we're going to be able to make it better with technology that is a robot, basically. You've seen the robot kiosk, have you not?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very sleek looking. I mean, for those that have, let's bring it up for those who have not seen the robot kiosk. We'll type in Elon's robot kiosk Neuralink. It's very fashionable, and it's only like 6 hours, right? It's almost like you were getting your ears pierced. So yeah, it looks like something out of one of the Alien movies. But there it is. You're just going to sit right down, and this thing is going to cut a hole in your head and wire a brain chip in, and it's going to put your skull back on and glue it. And if you need a repair, don't worry. The Musker Do is going to be there to help you. And I mean, again, they're going to sell this every which way but loose. It's not going to just be about depression or listening to Taylor Swift. It's going to be like different consoles, right? It's going to be like Xbox versus PlayStation versus Nintendo. I'm not kidding. Like, that's the next step. And this metaverse incarnation is really just the beginning of that, because a lot of people, for instance, Ricky, they're talking about these haptic feedback suits and these rooms and all that. That's technology that's old, man. Let me just repeat that. That's really old. Like, we're talking about decades old. That is decades old. Like, they were using those haptic suits decades ago when we're talking about DARPA. What's really going to happen is, yes, the visual will be there, but it will interact via Bluetooth or other wireless technology with your brain chip for the sensations of taste, touch, and smell. There will be no need for a feedback suit. And that'll be a feature. And some will be more immersive than others. And these are just some of the things that this technology is going to bring.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, it almost seems like they're making this reality so scary because people aren't sensitive to your feelings, and there's viruses everywhere and nobody's wearing a mask, and it's like, it's much safer if you just go in this virtual reality. And if you look at all, and that's the thing, like, all these things are they're not implemented overnight. It's like little baby steps. It's NFTs, or what are they called? And it's
Non-fungible tokens, yes.
yeah, you know, those type of things. It's like, oh, let me get the, you know, I can use these in my virtual reality, this world that I live in. And it's like little by little, you're just accepting this other world. And what's scary to me, it's like we're really only one generation away from it becoming normal. Because the thing is, you see it with everything. Like, if the children who are growing up in this new, you know, world, to them that is the only world that's ever existed. So like that's why I say people like our age and people who can saw the transition between the analog world to the digital world, like we have a much better grasp of how it affects us, the dangers of it, maybe some of the things that are gained from it, but also some of the things that have been lost from technology. And but the kids who grew up only knowing a world with Facebook and Google and YouTube, to them that's just the world they know, that everything else is primitive. And so it's like you implement these weird, you know, what I consider like kind of weird new ideas, and then the young generation comes up in a world where those things are accepted, and the next thing you know, it becomes normal, and then we die off and they just accept this as normal. And while we're like trying to shake them, like, no, this isn't normal, you shouldn't accept this, there's more to the story. And it's just it's scary, because a lot of the things that, you know, like Aaron Franz talked about in his, actually I got his old book right here, Revolve, and his documentary, seemed like I was not going to live to see any of this. And this whole transhumanism stuff, I mean, I didn't think that I'd be 36 worried that this shit's right around the corner. I thought I'd be like 86 being like, oh yeah, you know, I talked about it, you know, in the 90s or in the 2000s or whatever. You know, it's like it's wild how quickly it's happening. Are you hopeful? Because I'm getting a lot of people, I'm getting a lot of confusing emotions myself, with just like, sometimes I feel hopeful, sometimes I feel hopeless. And how do you feel? Like, do you feel like, because of, you know, Rockfin, people seeing these other platforms, Getter, I mean, not that, you know, I'm promoting one over the other or whatever, but I think these alternative platforms, them growing in popularity, kind of represents a little bit of how the population is actually understanding that these mainstream platforms are not, you know, what you thought they were, and they're being used against you. And there's people out there who are actually looking for truth and information, and there are people out there who aren't brainwashed, but just need to be just guided to these platforms. Because I think, you know, that's the other sad thing too, is that if you're having a conversation with somebody at that concert, you go, you know, the Korn concert, and somebody's like, dude, what that fucking dude told me blew my mind, like, let me go home and look this shit up. Where are the first two places they're going to look for it? Google and YouTube. And then they're going to be like, that dude I was talking to at the concert's fucking crazy, because I can't find any evidence of what he's talking about, you know? So it's like, that's why the censorship issue is so huge, because even if you can plant that seed of doubt in somebody's brain about, you know, just what's going on in the world, if they try to do their own research, if they don't know about BitChute, Odyssey, Rockfin, all these other platforms, then, you know, they're not going to find the information. And then they just stay brainwashed thinking that it's all conspiracy theory. But so it's you know, and again, I'm going back and forth as I discuss it, because I am kind of like, at one moment, counting on when you ask me, I'm optimistic. I'm like, yes, people, you know, these platforms are growing because people are looking for truth, and people want truth, and people are figuring out they've been lied to, and all these fringe topics are now mainstream topics. And then in the other hand, I'm like, I feel helpless, because I'm like, there's still so many people who are falling for it, and with censorship still controlling much of what happens on the web, you know, it's hard to find the, you know, content creators like you and I. I mean, you're still on YouTube, and I don't know how you're still hanging on, but you're still on there, correct?
I got back on, yeah. Again, I've gotten my channel taken now 5 times. It looked like last week, while I was on with the Convo Couch and others in a forum, I all of a sudden lost control of my back end, and it looked like they had taken me down again, like my channel was just gone, and I was live. Look, you have to shame them. Here's the deal. You talked hopeful or hopeless, right? I don't think I'm either. I think I'm a realist. I'm very encouraged that and this isn't to sound arrogant or cocky, but I'm not a fucking moron. Like, and I came across my heavy lifting on the fear and the anxiety side was absolutely post 9/11, being, in my early 20s in New York and watching the war on terror unravel and the lies told there, the original debunkers, aka fact checkers, right? And I think that over time, I wouldn't say that I got an expectation, but I got hard lessons in what is achievable and what is not, and what is reality, and how you can affect people, and why you should try to affect people no matter what, and still do the right thing no matter what. And whether you're the voice of reason of 1 or 1,000 or 1,000,000, it doesn't matter. The truth is the truth, and lies are lies, right? Period. When you talk about the fact that it's rolling on us very quickly, all right, I can't help, Ricky, but go back to this document because it laid it out. I mean, they literally have told you, welcome to the bots, Borgs, and humans of 2025 AD. Now we're less than 3 years out from this. Now, when you look at this document, again, you got the National Reconnaissance Office, you got DARPA, the CIA, National Research Council, FBI, Office of Naval Intelligence. I could Army after next. You keep going. You know what I mean? This is the hodgepodge, based in one bureaucracy. And when you get down, you keep reading it. It says, look, man, this is all based upon existing data, trends, analysis, and technologies. There is no pixie dust. So what they're telling you here is happening. They let you know that their new procurements and inputs, aka technology, take about 15 years to produce, and they are 40 plus years in inventory. That's how much they love you. That's how much they really care. Okay. And they knew that the bio nano era was going to begin in 2020. Here's the hopeful part. Unfortunately, no matter what you think about Donnie T or white hats or anybody, we're fighting back, guys. In 2001, they announced the bio and nano era would start in 2020. They injected billions of people with bio nanotechnology. There is no denying that. And it began in 2020. There's a question mark there. And again, if you think there's anything off on this document, not only do I encourage you to read it, but just take a look at the next bullet point. Virtual. It's literally being promoted in our face right now everywhere. We already discussed the metaverse. So there's the hope, right? This is their fourth industrial revolution. They don't know how much time it's going to take in the IT bio nano era to automate industry for agriculture, to bring in their virtual world of robotization, IT, bio nano industry, and agriculture. And then, again, this is by still the chief scientist over at NASA Langley. And I really need to put this down on people. In 2011, he said the code word is sustainability. All right. And they said they will institute population control that changes everything. In this document, they also talk about population stabilization. Okay, same thing. Stabilization of the world population. Notice it's not just the United States. This is everybody. Equalization of the haves and the have-nots. Altered politics, military outlooks worldwide that change everything. Okay, so he tells you sustainability is a code word, okay, for the decline of Western standards of living, and they will not get better. Later, he says that productivity is a code word for the taking over of automation and robotization. He then says, we've looked 10, 15 years into the future, and is there any job the robots can't do? And he goes, the answer is none. And then he says, at first we thought that we'd need humans in the nursing homes, but we put robots in Japan and the patients like them better. And then he says, again, and all this is documented. Anybody can go watch my videos. Anybody can type in Dennis Bushnell, Blue Tech Forum. Watch it for yourself. I encourage you. What human beings will do in the future is unclear. Well, I'll tell you what. He also talks about how if you don't have the latest brain chip in the next 15, 20, you can't compete. He also says that. No big deal. I'm going to be living That's what I'm going to be doing as a human being the rest of my life, no matter what kind of bio nanotech they try to inject in me, no matter what kind of smart deaths they make me try to inhale. I'm keeping my soul and I'm fighting these monsters. And I do not believe in a society where we are literally taking the evolution of something that I think is great and special and deserves to still be on this planet and turning it into something cold, and really subservient to a predator class, because the predator class they're not getting the brain chips, folks. All this technology exists externally so that if you want to get rid of it, you can. That's the big joke. Okay. That's another thing that they don't tell you. And basically they want a surf class. They want to use the technology to empower themselves. They want the de-aging tech. Do they have the fountain youth? I don't know. I know they've been de-aging mice publicly for 25 years. I know there's open developments in stem cell and other research. Hell, you had Nygaard sitting there bragging about how he was injecting the stem cells of, his aborted fetuses in his body, and that it was genetically repairing some of his cells, whether he's telling the truth on that end. People like Gates are into that. People like Epstein were into that. This is all a reality. It's so in your face. Hell, man, even guys like Thiel out there, were running operations where they were doing offshore experiments trying to bring in herpes vaccines. They don't have a problem, like, at all experimenting on people at all. And the public stuff is barely scratching the surface of what we created via that post-World War II era underground born classified.
And look at it, 5G. They're rolling it out, and hasn't there been some lawsuits too that have proven that it's unsafe? And I don't know if it was in this country or other countries, but I definitely have seen that. And I mean, really, we don't know what it's going to do or how it's going to harm people or whatever. I mean, one thing we do know, and even somebody as mainstream as like Ben Greenfield, who has a pretty good podcast, he's talked about just like turning off all your Wi-Fi, all your cell phones, all that stuff. It improves sleep, recovery. So it's just like, this is kind of common knowledge. And to think that if we're adding more and more of this stuff that is obviously having a negative effect on us, to think that it's not going to even have a bigger negative effect on our health is insanity. And it's like, for what? Like, I say this all the time. If my phone never got faster, I'd be okay. If my car like never got, more high tech or faster or whatever, improved braking, or like, I'm okay. Like, I get progress is good, but we have to rethink, what are we sacrificing for this progress? And there's also nothing wrong with being content. Like, we don't need faster internet. We don't need, it's like this idea that like people want to constantly upgrade things. And it's like, people get so lost in just wanting the new shiny thing that they don't realize that maybe it's a step in the wrong direction.
Well, let's even challenge that narrative a little bit about like 5G and phone speeds, right? Because that's the popular narrative. That's what 5G is. Your phone's going to be faster. Oh man, I'm going to download. Most of the 5G isn't even 5G. For instance, when 4G first launched, it was something called HPA plus, which was another version of 3G that they were almost able to get 4G before they brought in LTE speeds, right? So most of 5G via your phone is a marketing gimmick and not on the repeater 5G towers that you're seeing. What is the actual purpose of 5G? It is automation. It is openly automation. It is the self-driving cars. It is the network that they're putting up right now. What do you think, again, that DARPA run Starlink type internet is? It's to regulate all the other satellites that are going to be controlling these devices that are going to be using 5G. It's part of the automation program, not only in this country, but worldwide. They don't care about the truckers union. They don't care about the nurses. They don't care about the doctors. Why? They're going to automate them. They're planning on automating them to solve the problem. That is, and they want the subservient ones to stay to work along with the machines, just like you keep Gus around to keep training replacements for other people, and eventually they replace him, right? Like, have you seen, for instance, the Phoenix school commercial with the Cranberry song and the single mother? It's everywhere. I can't not watch nighttime TV and see it. So Have you not seen? I can't believe you haven't seen it. We have to play it on the show. Phoenix single mom job commercial. That's what we'll do. It's gonna come up. Right? Yeah, of course we can do it. Let's just do the 30-second version. We don't need to do the full 1 minute. But here we go. I mean, they're letting you know what they plan to do to you. Okay. I want everybody to really pay attention to what the end of this is.
It's changing every day.
Wait, I want to start. We didn't even get the big start. Hold on. Wait, again.
My life is changing every day. In every possible way.
Single mom, no dad.
I want more. Impossible to ignore. Impossible to
Her alone in a large server room. Okay. So like the extended one is actually a little bit longer, where it starts off and you start seeing everyone getting replaced by the machines one by one. It doesn't just turn into all machines, right? It's almost better to play the 1 minute one, but you get the idea. So they're letting you know, like, learn to code, because otherwise you're not going to have a gig. And your gig, if you are lucky enough to have one, is going to be amongst the machines, man. This is it.
Well, I've had Douglas Ruskoff on my show quite a few times, and he was another one of my early guests, and I've always found him super fascinating. And one thing that we discussed, I think even the first time he was on the show, because it was one of his ideas that I really found fascinating and want to dive into, was, he would talk about, and he wrote the book Present Shock, and talks, he was a cyberpunk guy and a really interesting guy, and he's been on a Rogan podcast too before. But he talked about how, like, we have enough technology now where we could work like a week out of the year, and we have enough. And he was saying this in 2013, which wasn't, that long ago. But the point was, like, we have more than enough technology where we could make more time for leisure and make our lives better. That's not, I don't necessarily think that idea alone is inherently bad. Now, the problem is, where there's people, there's always going to be corrupt people, bad people, evil people who want to control people, and you're going to take something, and I've heard you say this with James Corbett recently when he was on your show, like a hammer can be used to build a beautiful home for somebody and give somebody shelter, or it can be used to go around and kill somebody. And so is it the hammer that is bad or good? Like, it's neither. It's what you do with it. And technology is very similar. Like, technology doesn't have to be evil. Like, we could all live a life of leisure and have robots do things for us, and have more time to pursue things that we love and all that type of stuff. Same thing with like universal basic income. A lot of people think I'm like right leaning because on certain things, especially when it comes down to government tyranny and in regards to medical freedom and vaccines and that type of stuff, I definitely seem to find myself protesting with the people on the right. But in a lot of other issues with decriminalizing drugs and gay marriage and a pro-choice for abortion, I'm very left leaning. And even with universal, and my point is, like, I'm open to just ideas. And even if I have a idea right now, I'm open to changing that idea as I learn, more about it. And with universal basic income, it's kind of the same argument. Like, inherently, it's not evil. Like, I get the idea of, like, okay, welfare and all these social nets kind of, we kind of give people a reason not to work, because it's like, hey, we're giving you this money, and then if you work, we're going to take this money away from you, or we're going to take these benefits from you, these food stamps, we're going to take all this free stuff that you're getting. So if you had you remove that incentive not to work and just say, hey, we give you this amount of money for your necessities, and then if you want to work, you're just going to make more money, we're not going to take that away from you. In theory, it kind of seems like it makes sense. Now, the danger of all this is always like, okay, it's just like the self-driving cars or any type of tracking surveillance system. It could be used for good, if good people were the ones implementing it. Now, what will happen is that eventually somebody will be like, okay, well, the universal basic income will just be a way of getting you dependent on the government. It'll be another way of getting you, they'll find a way of corrupting. Like every good idea, there is somebody who will find a way of corrupting it and using it for their own benefit. And that's kind of the point I'm making. So I'm always open to all the stuff. So even like that commercial you showed, like the idea of like, hey, look into the future technology. Like instead of doing a job that's going to eventually be replaced by robots because of natural progression of technology, it's not the worst idea to go look at a IT job, because that's where the future's leading. I mean, it's no different than, I remember when I was in a high school, I went to a vocational school for half a day because, like I said, I didn't pay attention. So the school's like, hey, you must not like learning. Let's throw you to a vocational school. So the first year in the vocational school, I did electronics. And, we would fix VCRs, and I'm sure some people listening don't even know what a VCR is, but we would fix VCRs and Walkman and all that type of stuff. And then after like a couple years, they're like, hey, there's no use for this anymore. It's cheaper to buy something than it is to repair it. So that job's obsolete. And so we got into computer maintenance and that type of stuff. And so it's so this natural progression sometimes isn't inherently evil, just things progressing and technology getting better. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who get brainwashed in this idea that like, oh, this isn't inherently evil. Like Build Back Better is for this reason, but we're just trying to make the world better. We're trying to improve things. And it's like, they don't see that below the surface, there's people who are going to use it for their own benefit, and it's a facade, and it's an illusion that it's actually to help, or civilization and humanity.
No, I agree. When you talk about the UBI, it's kind of like that universal Medicare for all that I was talking about, right? It's going to come with all the hoops. You'll have to have these shots. Your social credit score will have to be of a certain nature, and it will be a mechanism of control. And those that don't take it obviously have their money devalued. And like you said, the technology itself inherently isn't bad. The problem is that human beings need a purpose. A lot of people like to deny that, right? And currently we're trying to be encouraged that our purpose is no longer to have families and reproduce, right? That used to be like the ultimate purpose of human beings. That's why we're here, generationally. And all species, period. But they're taking that away from us too, right? Again, I mean, you look at that commercial. That commercial is actually 4.5 years old, and it's being played more and more and more now because that's the society that they've pushed, right? No man in the family, strong woman, and that's okay. I'm not against women at all. It's just, again, getting you ready to do these things alongside machines. Well, where are all the other people? And what is the purpose? One of my biggest problems with like Zeitgeist when it came out, and me and Peter Joseph recently battled on Twitter again, for a little while until he shut his mouth. I don't hate Peter. I think that he's a smart guy, but one of his big pushes, especially in the second Zeitgeist that I challenged, was this idea that we were going to live in happy Sunshineville if we let automation take place and every human could have this. That's not reality, folks. And let me tell you why that's not reality. Because number one, like I said, you got to have a purpose. Now, whether that's purpose is teaching your kids something, going to work, mountain climb. I mean, you go off. You set a goal for yourself, right?
Going to work, because I think one of the issues is that we've told people that just going to work is a purpose. I think people need something that's more fulfilling. A lot of people work just mindless jobs that aren't fulfilling and are meaningless, and they don't feel like they're contributing something. And I think that's one of the reasons why you do what you do, why I do what I do, regardless if it financially gets us ahead or not. That's never a motivation.
Well, let me speak to that for a second, because you're not wrong, right? But that's the challenge of life, right? That's your decision, number one, ultimately. That doesn't mean you're getting the best job out of the gates and you're going to be able to do whatever. You have to work hard at certain things, sometimes menial, in order to progress, right? Like if you want that family, you're going to have to work hard at that relationship. Nothing is easy. And in this cookie cutter world where everything is automated and given to you in a UBI and everybody has the same house and the same car, someone's still going to want to bang your wife, bro. Like there's still going to be, human interaction.
I hope
Well,
so.
I
Bang my wife because that means that she's hot. I would, if somebody's looking at my wife, I don't take it personally. I'm like, that means she's attractive. If nobody's looking at my wife, I'd be much more worried.
you understand my point. People will betray one another. There will be problems. This will not create a perfect society. We are not a perfect people. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people out there that are very much the products of their environment. But then you get into that nature and nurture aspect of humanity. And I absolutely believe there is a nature aspect to us, and that there are genetics that are inherent in some of us, and that sometimes our parents and even our grandparents pass down those genetic memories on top of just physical attributes,
Well, we
right?
know that for a fact. It's epigenetics. I've had Rupert Sheldrake on the show, and we talked about. There's an article called "Inheriting Father's Fears," and what it talked about was, and I'm sure you've heard of this study where they sprayed this completely synthetic scent that mice wouldn't recognize in the natural world, and they would zap the shit out of them. So every time they'd smell that scent, naturally they would panic. Well, for 2 generations later, the babies, the mice, who'd never been shocked ever after smelling the scent, would have the same panic reaction when smelling the scent because they inherited the fear of being shocked from that scent. And so you're absolutely right. There's traumas. There's so many different things that, like, we think that it's just eye color, skin color, hair, that type of thing, height we get from our generations, from our parents and stuff like that. But I mean, we could be dealing with some demons that maybe is from our grandparents, some type of trauma they dealt with, you know. So it's all very fascinating.
I just feel like if we were using this technology to empower humanity, we wouldn't be, or when I say we, the predator class, the power elite, the media, the great narrative that is being pushed would not be one of scarcity, but one of abundance, and not be one of fear and pollution and reduction, but of expansion and the evolution of a human society where we all live in a first world nation and we find ways not to be at war with one another. We haven't even gotten close to that. We haven't even gotten beyond the evolutionary aspect of a society where we no longer have rule by bloodline. Royalty still exists very prevalently in the westernized world, in Saudi Arabia, in places around the globe, something we do not acknowledge. And we're going to give these people the keys to the automation and robotization castle, the same people that have these underground bunkers that have held the technology for 40 plus years, the same people that derived their systems from Nazis via Operation Paperclip and did human experimentations and continue to underground. Give me a break. Not a chance. You know what I mean? That's the very, very large problem with all this. And that's why our system of government was so important, because we used to have a system of checks and balances, right? And that system has been completely ignored during this COVID 1984 nightmare. I don't think that I could have emphasized that more by showing you a literal Supreme Court ruling by the state just being ignored in order to torture literally millions of children in New York. And I'm not kidding. This is torture. I mean, it's 100% torture at this point. Everybody knows a cloth mask does nothing to stop a virus. Less than 10% of the type of particles are stopped. And we're talking about, you know, droplet type particles. We're not even talking about the aerosolized virus itself. That's any virus, you know, and then that's common knowledge now. That's even admitted by the CDC. We talked about semantics and talking points and changing language. Well, it's no longer fully vaccinated anymore. It's, are you up to date? And it started off with 2 weeks to slow the spread, and then we were alone together, and now it's safe and effective, right? And let me just say this with people's blind spots and, you know, how we got to keep, you know, trying to reach other people and go beyond what the mainstream media will allow us. And yes, try to get those people that are, you know, of different political, religious, or just social persuasions, right? Alex Berenson went on Tucker last night, right? And now Berenson recently, as little as a week ago, was on with Robert Malone and fired some shots at Robert Malone that I didn't really enjoy. And Robert stood up for himself. It was a good segment. Berenson went on yesterday and finally said it. He said, these mRNA products are harmful and they need to be taken off the market. He was stuttering in his voice. Like you could tell He didn't really want to have to go this far. But now that they were on their 4th and 5th shots in Israel, he's like, the data is clear. All of these things need to be pulled off the market. He literally said, no one should take them under any circumstances. Well, you know who fucking said that over a year ago? He's got 2 thumbs, and it's this fucking guy right here. And he's not Alex Berenson. I don't have, the establishment media behind me, and I wasn't trained at college, but I have, the equivalent of a 4th grade education, because that's all you needed. The ability to read, okay, things that were published, and then be able to think for yourself whether or not you wanted to put Defense Department, DARPA created technology into your body or not.
Well, honestly, I think the propaganda behind vaccines, and this is, it's a topic that I've been hitting on for a long time. And, I've had a lot of doctors throughout the years, Dr. Brzezinski, Dr. Gregory A. Smith. I mean, so many doctors with their own stories about with big pharma. And even, Rogan, his old episode with Dr. Peter Duesberg, I recommend people going back and checking it out, because he's a very interesting fellow who was highly respected, similar to Dr. Brzezinski, who was on my show. And then, God forbid, he went against the mainstream narrative, and then funding stopped, and he got harassed and sued and all this stuff. And he brought up Dr. Fauci. This was on episode like 280 something of the Rogan podcast. So people in the world of medical freedom and knowing the very sketchy science behind vaccines, I've had Dr. Brian Hooker on, and when you follow what they do to people like Del Bigtree, Robert Kennedy Jr., anybody who would go against big pharma, when you saw like how quickly they would just smear their character, who they were, you saw with Dr. Judy Mikovits recently in 2020, and Mickey Willis, like you saw the power. And like I kept telling people, I'm like, we keep thinking like the military industrial complex is so powerful because they can take a unjust war, and with their influence and manipulation, they can convince the public to go to a country that we have no reason to be in and spend tons of taxpayers' money, gives billions of dollars to private corporations, knowing that it's going to leave casualties behind, and it's going to lead to people hating us. And yet they're so good at propaganda that they can sell us on it. And I'm like, well, now think about big pharma, because they spend more money now. They're more powerful. I think they're the most dangerous thing to humanity. But for some reason, like when you talk about big pharma people, and I'm sure you've experienced this, like if we talked about, big food, big pharma, and we talk about like selling us what we should eat, or selling us some pill that doesn't work, or whatever type of if we talk about Oxycontin and Purdue Pharma and how corrupt and shitty they were as people, and how they lied about the science, like it's all acceptable. Most people be pretty open to those discussions. But they've done such a great job of conditioning us at such a young age that vaccines is the exception to all rules, that it seems like they've created, we're talking about blind spots. I mean, vaccines are the blind spot. Like for some reason, you can get somebody to agree with you with, governments being corrupt, pharma being corrupt, all this stuff. Everybody agrees with you. And then the second you talk about vaccines, like, no, vaccines can't be harmful. It's like, and I think a lot of it is, one, at a very young age, you get them, you never question them, you're never nobody around you ever questions it, you're told these stories of how polio doesn't exist because of them, all this stuff. So it's like at such a young age we're conditioned to believe that vaccines are always safe and effective and always good and only done good in humanity. And that now in 2022 people still think that because it's in a syringe, it's a vaccine, even though it's not even a vaccine. But because it comes in a syringe, this gene therapy is a vaccine and it must be good. And we've convinced the public to take a experimental vaccine, something that's not fully FDA approved, and even if it was FDA approved, it means horseshit, because there's plenty. You want to talk about watching shows late at night? How about all those attorneys late at night that tell you, call my law office if you have a loved one that died from this drug? Guess what? That fucking drug was FDA approved. And so that shows you that even if it's FDA approved, it doesn't mean it's the fucking gold standard of safety, So Now look at something that's not even fully FDA approved. And with all the fuckery that's going on with the, there's no, I don't know if you heard about like the women that were part of the Pfizer trials having miscarriages. When you look at like the fact that two heads of the FDA, when they're pushing for the booster shots, stepped down. These are all, it's all out there. These aren't conspiracy theories. So, and obviously Dr. Robert Malone, his voice is being suppressed. But yet Josh Zepps is online saying that he, when he got in that little debate with Rogan, that, oh, the experts are saying this. It's like, well, how about this fucking expert? Because the thing that drives me nuts about, and I've heard people say this to you, and I've had it said to me, it's like, oh, if that was true, how come we didn't hear about it? Because they're out there, but they're silenced. Because if you control the internet, you control what voices you hear. And so when September 11th happened, there's plenty of fucking whistleblowers. There are plenty of people who told you that, hey, what the news was telling you and what I heard in the buildings or what I saw in the buildings or all this fuckery that was going on. Like, there's people who were talking, but you weren't hearing their stories. When same thing happened with JFK, same thing happened with the COVID thing, where there are whistleblowers, there was doctors, but guess what? Dr. Peter McCullough, who's been, on doing his rounds in alternative media, only now becomes a household name, but he's been saying this shit since 2020. And same thing with everybody else, Mickey Willis and Dr. Judy Mikovits and all these other people that have been outspoken. So it's like, it just boggles my mind that people think that if like it's again, it's all conditioning. Like the same way we're conditioned to believe the vaccines are always safe and effective, some people are still conditioned to believe that news station that's on TV, if they're not telling you something, it's because it's not true. And that even though we know there's some fuckery on the news, we know that Fox News lies sometimes and CNN lies sometimes, but it's still the news. And I have this inherent respect for, like you said, same thing with Alex, right? It's like this respect for somebody who's mainstream, somebody who has this resume. And it's like, none of that means fucking anything. Look at the information, specifically just the information, and is it right or is it wrong? And let's talk about that and stop forgetting and forget about who's telling you the information. To me, like, I don't care if I'm hearing, back in the day, YouTube used to get shit about like, oh, would you get that information on a grainy YouTube documentary? There's a lot of shitty produce documentaries on YouTube, but some of them are fucking fascinating. And when you look into it, it's like there's some really good information in this shitty, not so well put together documentary, but there's some good information in it. So like this idea that presentation makes the information better or worse because it comes with these nice lights and this fucking fake ass person on TV with makeup on and who smiles good and all this stuff. And it's like, it's like we have to break through that. I don't even know what the fuck my point is. I'm getting all worked up now.
Well, you know what? Because I got to wrap it up here. Let's go back to you talking about it being a gene therapy, right? They actually had to change the definition of quote unquote vaccines to include gene therapy and even the vector-based stuff. And I challenge the fact that this was experimental. It was not. They partnered with Moderna all the way back in 2013. The 2015 stuff is out there. They knew exactly what they were going to do, what this stuff was going to do at a Defense Department classified level. And when we talk about FDA approval or any of these three-letter agencies, I just want to put it out there that fuck these people. I don't care about them one bit or what they do and what they approve. People have to understand. This is a RAND document from 2020, okay? Brain-computer interfaces. Your FDA, your Food and Drug Administration, and the NIH, the National Institute of Health, have already sold you out. I want to let everybody know right now that there was a key effort in fueling most of these topics has been the Brain Research through Advancing Innovative Neurotechnologies Initiative at the National Institutes of Health. This effort is broadly aimed at revolutionizing an understanding of the human brain. Brain partners include the National Science Foundation, trust the science, DARPA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and the Intelligence Advanced Research Projects Agency, IARPA, as well as foundations, the NGOs out there, institutions, the colleges and universities out there, and industries, the private partners. Here they admit that the NIH allocated $46 million in 2014 and $81.4 in 2015 alone, reflecting a growing interest in the topic. DARPA has invested they literally put the quotation, hundreds of millions of dollars transitioning neuroscience into neurotechnology since the early 2000s. It's actually an unlimited black budget of billions. So once again, the FDA is working with the Defense Department on the brain interface technologies, both invasive like the chips and non-invasive, literally like nanobot shots. They talk about all of it. We get into a lot more where they talk about reading people's minds and finding out whether or not they could be an insurrectionist, that's actually put in here, or a terrorist. And they also talk about the ability to transmit the movements and motions of an individual through the internet to physically move another biological person. Okay, literally remote control people. These are the things that your FDA is involved with. So why would I ever believe them? We didn't elect the FDA. We didn't elect the CDC. We didn't elect the FBI or the CIA or the NSA or NASA or DARPA. And I could continue. Those are just the public agencies. And we know that they have all abused their power and that we now have a secret military. Posse Comitatus hasn't existed for a very long time, openly in this country, running under the cover of signature reduction, exposed now well over half a year ago, and Jason Bermas is one of the only people talking about it. And they're using DARPA tech. I mean, these are secret identities of people that have gloves that can take anybody's biometric information, put them on there, and then emit human oils. This is 2022. We are living it. You see what they wanted in that document for 2025. We know what they want for 2030. This is the fourth industrial revolution. I am a human being. I believe I have a soul. I believe you have one too. And I hope you join me in the fight for humanity and become the great resistance to this repackaged New World Order Great Reset agenda.
Well said. Well said. Yeah. I mean, that's why people need to go on Rockfin or wherever you're at and support content creators, because you saw what happened in 2020, how, I mean, a lot of cowards were kind of exposed. Like a lot of people didn't walk the walk. And, you know, I think people like yourself and all the amazing shows out there that weren't afraid to talk about things that were taboo, say things that went against the grain and probably, you know, pissed some people off and caused friction, but they knew the truth had to be heard. I think people have to remember that and hopefully support, you know, independent content creators, because, you know, when shit hits the fan, you know, we're going to be honest with you and we're going to do our best to try to bring you, you know, the information that we think is important and non-biased, you know. So without a doubt, check out. So obviously you're still on YouTube. Rockfin is your primary spot if you want to get the uncensored stuff. And then you're still on Twitter. Any other spots?
I'm on Getter as well right now. I'm on Minds and all those other things. You know, we talked about having a workplace, and I'm still trying to expand, man. You know, I talked to a guy a few weeks ago. I'm trying to get a building, and why? Well, that way I have interns. I can do a 2-hour show, and then they can cut it up. People don't understand. One of the reasons that I like these live platforms and I gravitated towards Rockfin is the multi-stream, right? I make one thumbnail, I hit a button 3 times, and I'm posted to 3 platforms. When it gets to the point, like, you know, I can't have James Corbett stream on my program anymore on YouTube because it's just too risky. So then I have to do an 1.5-hour interview. I have to think to myself, okay, what part are we putting on? Then I have to go through that 15 minutes. Then I cut that 15 minutes out. Then I censor the word vaccine 3 times. Then I make a new thumbnail. Then I upload it to how many other platforms. People don't understand that takes away from like the flow and the work. And I am trying to expand. You know, I don't need to be InfoWars or Alex Jones level, but I will always take the opportunity on a large platform like that to talk about my stuff. And I thank Alex for having me host the 4th hour recently. You know, I think that's a good thing. A lot of those guys are still stuck in this MAGA save you Trump fantasy, and I've never been told what I can say or can't say on that show. He knows I'm coming in guns blazing, and you know, there's another, you know, aspect to that. I mean, people respect you for standing on your own 2 feet. People respect you when they realize you actually believe what you say. People respect you when you're honest and not a grifter. And I hope that people realize I am really all those things. And I'm going to find a way to expand this year, Ricky. I don't care about the censorship. I'm going to figure it out. I might be on some calls later today about it, to be honest with you, but I can't wait to do it. I can't wait to be dropping hopefully a daily show for a couple hours and then expanding to all these platforms. But for now, you said it, the best way to get a hold of me over on the Rockfin, 100% uncensored. Everything I do is free. Everything that I throw up there that's, premium or whatever is a throwback. You can find it somewhere else. I want you to share my information. So feel free to do that too.
Yeah, well, that's really important. I think the thing is too, is that because you're honest and because you're open, people also trust you. Like, we're flawed, but our flaws let people know that we're human and we're not trying to put on a facade, or it's not theater. Humans mess up. We joke sometimes. We get emotional. We get that's all a part of being human. And but have you contacted or been hooked up with Matt from Content Safe? He does all my video stuff. Matt's awesome. He's been on the You've Done Wanted a few times. He's been on my show a few times. We have a mutual friend, Richard Grove, which quite well too, and he's good friends with Richard. Richard hooked me up with Matt. He has been a lifesaver in regards to video platforms. So what he does is you upload your video to one spot, and he syncs that one platform to all your platforms. So, and I used to do it on YouTube. Now I'm banned, and my channel doesn't.
That's the problem with mine. See, like I have that ability, to link. Like, I know how to do all that and automate it.
Yeah,
but I'm more concerned about the fact that again, I have to go through rewatch, and there's certain platforms I can put certain things on. For instance, a lot of people have wanted me to get on Rumble, right? One of the only reasons that I've not gotten on Rumble is that for the free account, okay, I'm not going to be able to live stream to it. So at the very least, it's going to be a record, a repost, all that other stuff, right? Just that little bit. And then if I did want to make it easier and stream, they charge you for how much you upload per month and then how many viewers you have per month. It seems, and I'm not saying I won't get there because I want to get there, but it makes it a lot easier if I say I have those interns and I'm like, let's start with the free Rumble, and they're going to cut up 4 or 5 videos that direct them over to Rockfin where it's easier. And by the way, the Rockfin model is the model I like. It's pay for play. People can decide to watch it free. They can decide to subscribe. They get everybody else's stuff. I'm trying to get them to bring the video chat feature to this, where users can upload a video and ask a question as a super chat, and then you put them on your show and interact with them. We just did in fact, people would like to see how that works and encourage Rockfin to adopt that. We just did that. Your face, your voice, my answers. And it was a great way to interact with the audience. I want these guys to be innovative. We both know that, the crypto aspect, in my opinion, right now is a huge plus, even with the dips, just the way society is going. So again, we're trying to expand. I know about all that automation, but again, with the censorship on top of everything. And then, how much time can I spend on social media a day? How much time can I spend talking about this a day? How much time of research can I spend a day? I try to limit the whole shebango of all of it to about 8 to 10 hours a day, because it is my job, right? But then, I got to detach. And other, after this, at 1 o'clock, I might have had to pick up one of my nieces. Now she's going to the library. Maybe that's 3 o'clock. I got to get the other one at 2. That's a done deal. One of them's going to be hungry. I'm probably going to have to cook too. I got to fit in my regular life on top of it. And I encourage everybody to do that, right? That's the point of this whole thing. Is it's not always easy, and it's not always fun, and loving or caring for somebody, can be difficult at times, but is the most rewarding thing out there. And loving each other and caring for each other by trying to be truthful with one another and empower the population with information and technology. To me, it's a win-win no matter what the forces of darkness are against it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And we're fighting for our freedoms and our rights to enjoy life. And let's not forget to, stop fighting sometimes and actually do those things, enjoy life a little bit. Because I think we can get a little bit caught up into all of it, and it can really bring down your mood. And then next thing you know, life passes you by and all you did was yell and complain about stuff. And it's, it's important to smile and laugh, and there's plenty of things that we could be grateful for even in such dark times. So without a doubt. But thank you, Jason, so much for your time. It's always very much appreciated. As you know, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and I think your whole thing with Loose Change is going to put you in the alternative media history books, for forever, which is awesome. And hopefully we connect again, hopefully on the Union of the Unwanted or one of our shows.
And I got to get you on my show as well, Ricky. And you do a great job. We love the Union of the Unwanted. I try to pop in when I can. So I thank you, and you keep up the great work as well.
Thank you. And again, very much appreciate for getting me on Band.video. You're a huge help. I really appreciate it. I'm like you. I try to expand everywhere. I'm not a MAGA guy.
Yeah, I don't even have one of those accounts, right? I got you an account and I don't have one. And one of the reasons that I haven't done that is because they don't have the live stream platform on it. And again, it would be another upload and just another process. And maybe it's a 5 to 10 minute process because I have great internet. But you just start stacking those things and you just keep absorbing. But we're going to expand. I'm glad you're on Band.video, and I know you're getting a good audience over there.
Yeah. Well, that's why I brought up Matt from Content Safe, because I upload to one platform and he syncs it to all my channels. I've never even logged into Rumble or BitChute, and I'm on Odyssey, or Minds. I upload to Odyssey. And then it goes everywhere. It goes on my it syncs to my Rockfin channel, Minds, Rumble, all that stuff, and it's just there. So I'm like you. I just try to. I tell people to kind of find it anywhere you can find it and expand. Post it if you want. So the more platforms, the better. Even if I don't even use the platforms, I figure you might reach some people. So I love what he's doing. He has tons of just he's a fan of us. He's a fan of alternative media. So his tech savviness is really motivated to protect the content creators he likes and enjoys. So Content Safe is a great company. I love what he's doing. He's helped me out a lot with like you said, it's super time consuming, uploading on every single platform, and every platform is slightly different. So he saves me a bunch of time. But anyways, yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks again. We'll keep in touch, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, brother. Later on.
Yep. Take care.